So trademark basics, and I want to cover trademark. And yes, the webinar is called Copyright for Creative Professionals. But wherever there are copyright questions, there are always trademark questions, and there's a great deal of confusion about the line between the two, between trademark and copyright. So before getting into copyright proper, I want to cover trademark. Common words cannot be trademarked. You cannot trademark, for example, the word hat, because, well, it's a common word. It's part of it's part of the English lexicon, and every other language that I've ever heard of in the world has a word for hat. So you can't trademark that. What you can trademark are logos depicting words or a unique combination of a common word and an uncommon word. For example, the word Windows cannot be registered as a trademark because unless you live in a teepee or a clay adobe house, we all have windows in our homes. But our computers, some of us, have Microsoft Windows installed. That's a registered trademark because it's the unique word of Microsoft, which is itself a registered trademark all by itself, and the word Windows. So now Windows is identified as a brand name, a product name. So that is eligible for registration. Illustrator, also generic word, certainly not a word that Adobe coined. That can't be registered as a trademark, but Adobe Illustrator is a registered trademark. I don't know if anybody in here happens to use Adobe Illustrator, but you'll notice that every time Adobe promotes that product, or even on the splash screens or the help files, it is always Adobe. It's always listed as Adobe Illustrator with a registered trademark symbol, the R in the circle. Similarly, some brands begin by using generic words that can't be trademarked, can't be protected, and therefore they can't have any value in those brand names. The Sci-Fi Channel, for example, began as Sci-Fi, S-C-I, and then F-I, and I've seen it sometimes presented with the space between Sci-Fi and sometimes without. That's not trademarkable. It's a common language term now. It was coined somewhere in the late 60s. I think Robert Heinlein, the author Robert Heinlein, was the one who did it. But, and I could be wrong about that, don't quote me on that particular fact. But it's a common word, so it can't be trademarked, which means the Sci-Fi Channel could have competitors popping up with the exact same name, which means Sci-Fi Channel could have lost their audience to a competitor. So in 2009, they changed their name to SYFY. Same sound, very visually different representation of that sound. That is trademarkable because it's a unique name. So they registered that trademark, and now Sci-Fi has equity and value in that particular mark, and they can also pursue someone for using SYFI without their permission. Trademark registration is not required. You don't have to register your trademark in order to enjoy protections on your mark. It helps a great deal, and in fact, in many trademark disputes, having a registration is a requirement or a prerequisite to going to court and suing somebody about it. So registration isn't required, but it's a huge help, although it's expensive. Use of the registered R in a circle symbol is only for registered trademarks, as I mentioned. It's forbidden to use it without having an actual registration. So if you file for a trademark registration today, you can't use the R until you get the registration form back, or the certificate of registration rather, from the USPTO. Trademarks that are not registered typically use the TM, or service marks can use the SM. Service marks can use either one, TM or SM. Trademarks are also classified according to a type of product or service. So if you look at Delta as an example, Delta Airlines Delta is a registered trademark of an airline and of a faucet company. So the same unique mark, and in fact Delta is being a Greek letter, Delta has been used in a number of different registered trademarks. The reason they can all be used simultaneously without infringing on each other is they serve different markets and produce different services, different products, or provide different services. Each product or each trademark has to be classified into what type of business it is, or what type of product it is, or what type of service or company division or whatnot. For example, Apple Computers Inc. owns the Apple registered trademark in Class 9, which is for computers, software, electronic instruments, scientific appliances, and that's just a short description. It goes into a lot of different electronic types. So Apple Computer owns the Apple registration net. I can't go and register Apple Medical. I couldn't register a trademark I couldn't register the Apple trademark for a medical electronics devices company that I might put together, because we'd be competing in the same business class. However, I can go register the Apple trademark if I'm producing Apple's shampoos and conditioners, or I am producing Apple brand cars. Can't use the stylistic Apple with a bite through it logo that Apple Computer uses, because that's also a trademark. The logo, the visual representation of their brand, is trademarked. And that would cause brand confusion across any classifications. But I can use the name Apple and I can produce something